Thank you, councillors and members of senior staff. I declare open this special meeting of Temora Shire Council, and thank you very much for being here. Just to advise that this meeting is being recorded and will be placed on Temora Shire Council's webpage for public information, and all present today are reminded that while speaking that you are agreeing to your view and comments being recorded and published. You're also reminded that if or when speaking, you are of course to be respectful to others and use the appropriate language as we do here at Temora Shire, and Council accepts no liability for any defamatory or offensive remarks or gestures during this Council meeting. And councillors, we have received an apology from the General Manager, who is still somewhere in Australia. Someone prepared to move that we accept that apology, please? Thank you. Councillor Reinhold doesn't wish to accept that apology. Councillor Reinhold, the Deputy Mayor, moved and seconded. All those of that opinion, please say aye. To the contrary, no. Declare the motion carried. Thank you very much. Councillors, we will have a prayer this morning. So if we can bow our heads. Heavenly Father, thank you so much for all that we have here in Temora Shire, and thank you for, particularly as we're meeting here today in this chamber to consider this State Government Stronger Country Communities Fund Round 4 of nearly 790,000. It is a real blessing and one that we're very grateful for, and I'd ask that we consider each other's views in that respectful and kind manner that is part of what Temora Shire is. So we thank you for all that we have received and much more, and we say this all in the name of Jesus. Amen. Thank you. So there's no declaration of any interest, councillors? No. Therefore, we don't have any presentations, minutes, reports. We have one item, of course, in the special meeting to consider, and that is the Stronger Country Communities Round 4 projects, and of course that is a state government grant program. Council have, of course, workshopped this to consider. Thank you. Councillors, could I please have a motion to receive staff reports? Thank you, Councillor Winky. Councillor Oliver moved and seconded. All those of that opinion, please say aye. To the contrary, no. Declare the motion carried. Thank you very much. Now, let's go to, we have the one item, of course, to consider. It's under the Environmental Services Department, and I think the Director...
Through you, Mr Mayor, I'd just like to raise a potential conflict of interest, just to declare my executive position on the Temora Rugby Union Club and look for your guidance on that.
I thank you for that, and my advice, Mr Director, would be it probably would be wise to vacate the chamber, but ultimately the call's up to you.
I'll do so then.
Yeah, thank you. So you're deferring to the Town Planner, Mr Director, I would assume. Now, let's go to the Town Planner for us to consider the 6.1, the Stronger Country Communities Fund. Thank you, the Town Planner.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. So I provided councillors with a summary of the responses that we received. The survey was very well received by the community. Quite a number of responses, which is gives a good indication for council of the community's views, and I'm requesting that councillors consider the information provided to them and provide me with some direction of their preferred projects and their priorities. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Town Planner. Councillors, we do thank you and the senior staff for the effort you put into the workshop to come to the priorities that we were recommending to our community, and we also commend our community, of course, for those 277 responses that were received, which I would have thought is an impressive figure. So, councillors, it is over to you. And of course, there is a recommendation over on page 8 for you to consider. And the process, of course, from here, Madam Town Planner, is that council consider this, and they will then resolve one way or the other about projects to apply for, but then it also would have to, of course, have the blessing of the member for Cootamundra as well.
Yes, that's correct, Mr Mayor.
Yeah, thank you very much. So, councillors, the Town Planner.
And just one more piece of information that has come to my attention is that just in relation to the netball courts for Nixon Park, so as you may be aware, so the Ruse Club has applied for separate funding, that there's still no indication of when that will be announced. There is, however, a difference of what they have applied for versus council's allocated budget. So the Ruse netball, they have applied for a higher level court, which is a called a rebound surface court, which is a concrete surface, and then there's a various coating to provide a bouncier surface, whereas under this funding, Stronger Country Communities Council had in mind that it would be a similar surface to the town netball courts. But I'll defer to the Manager Engineering Services if you wish to make any further comments.
Thank you. So, pardon me, just so when the club applied for this other court, they did contact our engineering department?
They did. Yes, they did make contact with council in that we provided a letter of support for them to apply.
With that upgraded court?
With that upgraded court, but for council information, so the two courts with the high level surface would cost at least $200,000 for those two courts, plus lights, plus a fence to protect the courts from people driving on them, whereas my understanding is the asphalt surfaces would be $80,000 plus lights.
No, I'm not aware of it.
Oh, right. Well, the engineer's just advised that he's not aware of it. So the engineer?
Yeah, thanks, Mr. Mayor. I'm aware that they applied for the other grant, but I wasn't aware of the standard at which they wanted to upgrade the courts to.
So how will that go in terms of, obviously maintenance will be required one day, and is that more costly or?
Listen, it's similar, but the fact of the matter is we don't have the money to do $200,000 upgrade. If they want to pursue that path, well, it needs to be considered at another time, I would have thought. Yeah.
Thank you. The Deputy Mayor?
Yeah, that sort of leaves us in a bit of a spot as where do we go with this. Like if was what we've got in here was to get up, it's sort of do we leave this out and hope they get their funding, or do we just go ahead with this anyway?
Thank you. The Manager?
Yeah, I'd recommend that we go ahead. So I think, by the sounds of it, like I said, I'm not up to speed with the details of their other application, but they'd be talking about rebound ace, which is like the same surface that goes on tennis courts, and I believe it could be applied to an asphalt surface anyway. I don't necessarily think it has to be concrete. And my view would be that we leave it in for now, and we probably hold a discussion with them, ASAP, to say this is what we intend. You take it or leave it, I suppose. I'm not sure.
Yeah, I think that's important, and I see nods around the chamber, but because I understood that if there was a club that wanted to upgrade, that they had to talk obviously with council, in particular the relevant department, to see if it's appropriate. I suppose my initial worry is that what happens with any upgrades of that surface, is that going to be more costly for a future council to maintain? So, council, happy then if immediate discussions take place with the Australian Rules Netball Club in relation to the not flooring, the surface? Yeah. Okay, but in the interim, council are happy to leave this in here at the present time. Yeah, okay. Okay, so are we going to, I suppose for the purposes of being that we're on recording, if we just go by each line item just to reaffirm council's commitment. So the priority number 1 that was listed, the 70,000 for the recreation ground to modify storage room to create women's change rooms at Temora. So that's council still happy there, good. Number 2, the $80,000 allocated for Bob Aldridge Park, the refurbish existing change rooms to provide for women's change rooms at Temora. Okay, the number 3, the Nixon Park widen and resurface netball courts and install lights at Temora. Number 4, the $50,000 for the recreation ground, outdoor gym with rubber softball, upgrade to laundry, change room, outdoor seating, shade area at the skate park, extension on, what's that say?
Western side.
On the western side area park. 50,000 Temora Recreation Centre, the completion of the splash park and purchase of a hoist at Temora. That's number 5. Number 6, Nixon Park, 105,000 for long jump pit, upgrade for athletics, additional shade, grassed area, resheet car park at Temora. Okay, number 7, $100,000 for the Bundawarra Centre for walkway at Temora. Happy. Number 8, $50,000 allocated for CCTV, expansion and upgrade of the current system in Temora. Happy. Number 9, $54,141 for shade sales at Nixon Park and Lakes and Tenery Playgrounds in Temora. Happy. This is number 10, $50,000 for Harper Park, the upgrade of toilets at Area Park. Happy. Number 11, last project, $50,000 for footpath upgrades in Temora. Councillor Judd, bless you. Councillor Judd.
I would presume the last one would be footpath works in the Temora, in the Shire, really.
Yeah, I'm just looking at here, but that would make sense. Councillor Slay.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Did you give a price on the Nixon Park, number 3, and recreation ground, number 4?
130,000 for Nixon Park.
Thank you.
Sorry, and number 4, 50,000 for the rec ground.
Thank you.
Thank you. So, councillors, are you all of the view that the footpaths, that's 50,000 for Temora Shire? Yep. So if we just make that inclusion, thank you. And therefore that adds up to a total of $789,141 as part of the Round 4 Stronger Country Communities Fund. Well, councillors, are there any further comments? Councillor McLaren.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm very happy. The first 6 items we had in our list are the first 6 items that the community had prioritised. Slightly, a couple of them were switched around, but basically the first 6 that we allocated are the community's first 6 preferences. So I don't have a problem with any of that. I think that's great. And the last 4, there's a little bit of a tweak there, but basically I think we've complied with what the community would like.
Thank you, Councillor McLaren. I think you're right. I think we've done pretty well. I do, and it's a good mix. I think that was the thing. I think that when councillors and senior staff workshopped it, we wanted a good mix of projects right across the Shire. Councillor Oliver.
Yeah, thank you, Mr Mayor. Just this Nixon Park one, there's $70,000 difference between what the high quality upgrade and the 130 that we're proposing. How much is the grant that they've put in for? Will it cover that difference if this happens to come through before we start doing anything like this?
Thank you, councillor. I'll defer to the town planner.
Through you, Mr Mayor. So they've applied for approximately $265,000, but there's no indication as yet when that will be announced. I've made contact with the Office of Sport. I've made contact with the Office of Steph Cook MP, but there's no response about when that will be announced.
Thank you. And again, there'll be that urgent meeting with the club to discuss the situation about the surface. Thank you. Councillor McLaren.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I think it's exciting they've got a grand plan. I'm not sure how likely it is to be funded, but in all events, the seniors court down there has needed being replaced for a long, long time, and it's quite dangerous. So I would be very keen to leave the 70,000 there because that needs to be done pretty much as a priority. I think the junior one was done probably in, I don't know, 5 or 6 years ago, I remember, resurfaced, Rob might remember. But the seniors one, even then, was cracked up on the sides and really needs doing.
Thank you, Councillor McLaren. Yes. Anyway, the town planner.
There is another round of this Regional Sports Facility Fund, so council could consider we could perhaps allocate the money for stage 1 if the manager is of the view that the asphalt surface could then be upgraded in the future, and they could apply again for a smaller amount, which would be the upgrade to the higher level surface, and perhaps the only sort of lost investment would be the line marking. But I certainly agree with Councillor McLaren that in the short term there needs to be some improvements to that senior court.
Thank you. I think we also need just to remind all of our sporting clubs as well that, you know, they need to, in any grant application on council-owned facilities, that they do need to, they must talk to council. So that's something that, you know, we can advise through Sports Council, through formal channels as well, because sometimes the deck chairs change on executives and they may not know the protocols of what to do. So we can handle that. Thank you. Councillor Judd.
Yeah, I'd be very, very careful about putting this hard surface on bitumen without getting guarantee it's going to work.
Thank you. The engineer.
Yeah, thanks, Mr Mayor. Yeah, I agree. I think the first thing we need to do is just meet with them and find out where they're getting their advice from, and then we'll go from there. I still think it'll work, but we wouldn't do it without the appropriate advice. I'm not sure where they're getting theirs from, but we'll see.
Thank you, Councillor.
Sorry, I was saying the short story is if we don't allocate this money and they're not successful in the other one, it's going to come back to us. So I think we need to look to do something now while the money's there.
Thank you, Councillor McLaren.
Oh, I was just going to comment, at the moment they've got a package to do everything all at once to a very high standard, and it might be a project that could be done seniors court 5 years time, lights, another, in separate bits rather than do it really good quality in sections rather than try and do it all, that won't do the long term.
Thank you. Yeah, I'm just really interested to know with this fancy surface that they're talking about. I'm really interested to know, and I think council would, what is ongoing maintenance costs? What does that involve? Yeah. Thank you. The Deputy Mayor.
Yeah, thanks, Mayor. I'm just wondering if it's wouldn't be too, now that we've allocated this money to the courts, would that help their application if it could be known that council's putting $70,000 in and maybe only need 200,000 now instead of 260 or whatever it was. So.
I'm not sure. The town planner, are you aware, or you take that on notice?
Yeah, through you, Mr. Mayor, I'm not sure. So the club applied directly, so they did make contact with us to tell us they were applying, but at the same time we were applying for our own grant for the main pool. So that was sort of our focus of the fund at that time, and we just provide a letter of support for them to make application. And so then as part of this process they've provided us with the information that they submitted for their grant application, and that's when I became aware that they'd applied for this higher level surface than council sort of had in mind within our own budget. And so that's sort of where the situation arose, where we were sort of not really aware of what they had in mind. But I'm uncertain if you can make approaches to the grants people at this late stage in the process. But as I said, there may be capacity for us to assist the club to make application under the second round. We do have 2 years to spend money under Stronger Country Communities Fund, but obviously we're mindful of the situation of the court in its poor state at the moment, that there's a certain degree of urgency about getting these upgrades done in the off season, so that when netball comes around again that they've got a safe surface to play on. So I think the approach of talking with the club in the short term would be appropriate.
Yeah, and very, pardon me, very urgent, because ultimately council will determine what the surface will be. Okay, councillors, pardon me, there is a recommendation there for you to consider on page 8 that we confirm the projects and their priority to be applied for under the New South Wales Government Stronger Country Communities Fund Round 4. Councillor Winkie.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'll move the recommendation.
Thank you. Councillor Oliver, you're seconding the motion?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, and I don't know whether we put further that we consult with the Nixon Park.
Well, yes, then further that we have immediate discussions with the Temora Australian Rules Netball Club in relation to the court surface. Yeah. So mover happy with that addition? Thank you. It's been moved, Councillor Winkie, seconded Councillor Oliver, that we as a council confirm the projects and the priority to be applied for under the Stronger Country Communities Fund Round 4, and further that council hold immediate discussions with the Temora Australian Rules Netball Club in relation to court surface, the court surface. If there's no further discussion, Councillor Judd.
Yeah, just on the comments on page 8, I do agree with the comment about the minimum project budget for this scheme. I think 50,000 is not very relative in the scheme of things. You know, I know there's a lot of small projects would have come. I think better. I think a 20,000 minimum is probably a better thing to probably recommend to the state member for the future budgets, but future grant schemes. And the second thing is, it irks me that we have to put this thing out for voting by the community. I said, you know, we have a council elected by the community and you know, if the state government can't trust the council and the community can't trust the council, I don't know what's going on. So that gets me a bit. So, thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Judd, and I think that all of us in the chamber would reflect the views, particularly in relation to going out to the community. I know we've raised it before when it raised its head, both formally and informally. It is, to be frank, a bit of a slap across the mush for the elected councillors, and then I think it also makes light of the community strategic plan, trying to encourage people to come and be part of that. When in a situation like this, they can just have a say, and it just dilutes that process, is my view. the engineer?
Yeah, the other thing that concerns me about going to the community is that the way in which people respond. Like, you know, I feel like the responses you get are heavily slanted towards the, you know, the club type responders, as opposed to, you know, your senior citizens who walk down the street every day or whoever. Like, I feel like the responses that we get are all, you know, heavily linked to club associations, which I think skews the wider community view.
Thank you, very well articulated for this time of the morning. No, thank you very much. And Councillor Judd, in relation to the minimum project 50,000 value, I personally agree. I'm not sure what other councillors believe. I think 50,000 is too high in terms of a minimum project, but at the end of the day, it is what it is for round 4. But again, after we consider this motion, if there's, I'd be happy to entertain another motion in relation to making representations on the off chance that there may be a round 5, which you never know. So, council, has been moved and seconded. If there's no further discussion, I'll put the motion. All those with that opinion, please say aye. To the contrary, no. Declare the motion carried. Thank you. Councillor Judd, did you wish to?
Yes, Mr Mayor, I'll move that we send a letter to our state member saying that we believe the minimum for this strong country communities should be 20,000 rather than 50,000. It cuts out a lot of possible community projects that won't make that 50,000 project, and I think and I'll move that way.
Thank you. Councillor Reinhold, you've seconded the motion. Thank you. And councillors, we have already, remember, written to the member for Cootamundra thanking her for the round 4. So, you know, I'm sure we'll just weave in again, you know, we're grateful, etc. It's been moved and seconded that we write to our state member for Cootamundra and recommend that if there's any future rounds that it be reduced to 20,000 as a minimum project, is essentially the, yeah. Because it does cut out a lot of smaller projects.
Yeah, they can't be packaged up.
That's right. We believe in the project. Yeah, recommending. That Temora Shire Council believe So Councillor Judd and Councillor Reinhold, does that capture the essence of what? And then, of course, in the body of the letter, I would assume that it would be the narrative of, you know, it prevents smaller community projects from being included. Yeah, more bang for your buck. Yeah. Happy with that? Councillor Reinhold, you're happy? If there's no further discussion on that motion, I will put it to you. All those of that opinion, please say aye. To the contrary, no. Declare the motion carried. Thank you very much, councillors. There being no further business for this special meeting of Temora Shire Council.
Chris is still out there.
Ah, yes. Thank you. Could you please... forgot about Chris.
Mr. Chris.
Thank you. Welcome back, Mr. Director. During your temporary absence for the last half hour, that Council have adopted the recommendation on page 8 And further to that motion, that there be an immediate meeting held with the Temora Australian Rules Netball Club to discuss court surface issues. And then there was a new motion that council have adopted that we write to the state member for Cootamundra recommending that any future rounds of Stronger Country Communities that the minimum project amount should be 20,000. And both those motions were carried unanimously. So thank you councillors and senior staff. There being no further business, I declare this special meeting closed. Thank you.